Lewis Hamilton just exposed the truth, and it's not just about the car. It's about what Ferrari has been hiding from day one. Why has the greatest driver of his generation been struggling with inconsistency? And why did Ferrari never want the real reason to come out? In this video, we reveal the internal split inside Ferrari, the data Ferrari tried to bury, and the stunning reason Hamilton was never given a fair shot in Brazil. Because this wasn't just miscommunication. It was a decision. And now Hamilton is fighting back with facts. It wasn't a spin. It wasn't a mechanical failure. It wasn't a lack of talent. When Lewis Hamilton walked away from his Ferrari in Brazil, retired early, no radio outburst, no media storm, the silence said everything. The man who's dominated this sport for nearly 2 decades had been given a machine that couldn't compete. And now, weeks later, Hamilton has revealed the truth. His inconsistency wasn't on him, it was built into the very system designed to hold him back. The numbers don't lie. In São Paulo, Hamilton ran with a degraded floor, an outdated rear suspension, and a tire compound window completely outside his operating range. While Charles Leclerc received the latest upgrade package, Hamilton's side of the garage was told to prioritize data stability. Translated? He was running the old spec. On one of the most demanding tracks of the season, Hamilton was sent in blind without the tools to fight, and without the support to adapt. But what triggered the revelation wasn't just the technical gap, it was the strategic silence. Ferrari never clarified why their star signing was running older hardware. They didn't explain the development split. And internally, the instructions were clear. Leclerc's package was the reference point for 2026. Hamilton's setup? Baseline control. That wasn't a racing decision. That was political alignment. It was a shift in the internal hierarchy of Maranello, and Hamilton felt it in every corner. His inconsistencies weren't random. They were engineered. When you're handed a car with different balance characteristics, no setup flexibility, and narrower energy deployment maps, your pace becomes track-dependent. Some weekends the layout masks the flaws. Others, like Brazil, expose them completely. And Hamilton knew that explaining it to the public wouldn't help. So he did what champions do, he waited. He gathered proof. And when the time came to speak, he dropped the bomb. In a quiet post-race debrief, Hamilton finally admitted what insiders had whispered for weeks: this isn't about adaptation. It's about preparation. I haven't had the same version of the car in several key weekends. That's the reality. No blame. No drama. Just clarity. For a driver who's built his legacy on precision, that statement was sharper than any accusation. It confirmed what the telemetry had already shown, that this inconsistency was never about him. Now the world knows. What looked like a decline was actually a misalignment. What fans read as struggle was the result of unequal tools, hidden decisions, and an internal culture that chose silence over support. But the story isn't finished. Because Hamilton isn't stepping back, he's stepping in. Into the garage. Into the data. Into the fight. And now, with the truth exposed, every lap is part of the reckoning. The key to understanding Lewis Hamilton's performance in Brazil is not in the lap chart. It's in the telemetry, and that's exactly where the truth lies. During the free practice sessions, Hamilton's Ferrari struggled to keep rear tire surface temperatures above the optimal threshold. He was running almost 4 degrees cooler than Leclerc, a difference that makes rear-end stability vanish. On a track like Interlagos, that's catastrophic. It means understeer on entry, snappiness under throttle, and lap times that drift without driver error. And then there's the floor, or rather, the one Hamilton didn't get. While Leclerc received the updated floor design with improved edge stiffness and tunnel pressure optimization, Hamilton's car remained on the previous spec. That meant less aerostability, especially in the critical medium-speed corners of Sector 2. It also meant higher tire degradation. According to internal data, Hamilton lost nearly 30 points of downforce due to minor floor damage on lap 1. But here's the twist: that damage only had such an impact because the floor was already outdated. That wasn't an accident. It was part of Ferrari's engineering decision to run 2 development streams. Leclerc's car was now the lead platform for 2026 testing. Hamilton's? A baseline model for comparative analysis. They didn't call it downgraded, but they didn't have to. The engineers knew. The data team knew. And Hamilton knew. He wasn't being set up to compete equally. He was being used to validate someone else's evolution path. The throttle traces and brake maps told the story. Hamilton was lifting earlier, braking deeper, and using conservative energy deployment strategies, not by choice but because that's all the older car could handle. He wasn't driving badly. He was operating within a reduced envelope. And that's why his pace swung so wildly from circuit to circuit. Some layouts allowed him to mask the deficit. Others, like Brazil, exposed every millisecond. Even corner-by-corner comparisons raised eyebrows. In qualifying, Hamilton was consistently faster in entry phase through turn 4 but lost it all on exit. Why? Because without the revised suspension geometry on Leclerc's car, traction was compromised. It's not about driving style. It's about grip. And Ferrari knew exactly which driver had the tools to maximize theirs. The final blow? The energy deployment profiles. Hamilton was running a version from 3 race weekends prior. That means less punch on straights, fewer override options, and no access to the refined harvesting algorithms designed to keep battery life optimal across stints. So when he dropped back in Brazil, it wasn't fatigue. It was physics. The Brazilian Grand Prix wasn't the start of Hamilton's problems. It was the proof. Because weeks earlier, inside Ferrari's engineering division, a silent decision had already been made, one that reshaped the season without a single headline. Following the Mexico weekend, Ferrari leadership greenlit a shift in resource allocation. All remaining upgrades, testing scenarios, and energy deployment trials would run through one car, Leclerc's. The reason? Prepare the long-term development stream for 2026. Hamilton's chassis was assigned another role: consistency. Validation. A reference point. Behind the scenes, it was called load balancing. In practice, it meant Hamilton's car was being frozen: no new floor, no rear suspension trials, no updated harvesting maps. It also meant narrower setup flexibility. Engineers on Hamilton's side of the garage were instructed to prioritize data integrity. That meant fewer wing angle experiments, limited ride height adjustments, and no aggressive camber testing. The car had to stay stable, not fast. That was Leclerc's job. The political shift didn't need to be announced. It was felt. Leclerc's feedback was driving the development curve. Hamilton's feedback was being archived to compare, not to implement. And yet, rather than explode publicly, Lewis chose something far more dangerous. He adapted. He reprogrammed his driving. Began extracting time through consistency rather than evolution. He adjusted to the limited tools. And then, quietly, began to close the gap to the very car that had all the upgrades. By Qatar, engineers inside Maranello were whispering. Hamilton's long-run pace with an older spec was within 0.2 of Leclerc's. His tire life was longer. His entry speeds were smoother. He was maximizing a car not built to win. And that was the warning sign Ferrari didn't expect. Their baseline was catching their benchmark. The data they thought would confirm Leclerc's superiority was beginning to show something else, that Hamilton was still operating on a level the system didn't support but couldn't suppress. And it got worse for Ferrari. Because while Hamilton's performance improved, his silence remained. No accusations. No leaked frustration. He didn't break the system. He used it. Every lap became a message. Every stint, a proof point. He was turning the very engineering limitations designed to hold him back into a showcase of his control, his intelligence, and his consistency under pressure. That's the problem with sidelining a driver like Lewis Hamilton. He doesn't retaliate with noise. He responds with numbers. And right now, every lap he completes inside that outdated Ferrari is telling Maranello the same thing. You made the wrong choice. The turning point wasn't an engine failure. It wasn't a bad pit stop. It was a speech. Days after Brazil, Ferrari's president, John Elkann, stood before a room of executives and media to outline the future of the Scuderia. It was polished, strategic, and carefully constructed. He spoke of discipline. He praised Leclerc. He talked about identity, loyalty, and drivers who reflect Ferrari's long-term vision. But one name never left his mouth: Lewis Hamilton. No mention. No nod. No recognition of the most successful driver the team has signed in over a decade. For fans, it was clear. For Hamilton? It was confirmation. The internal split was now public. The message from Ferrari's top level was simple: the future is Leclerc. Hamilton is the placeholder. But Hamilton didn't explode. He didn't go to the media. He didn't throw shade on social platforms. He went back to the simulator. Back to the garage. Back into the cockpit. And then, on a cold Friday afternoon at the next race, he posted a long-run pace that matched Leclerc sector for sector while still using the older spec. No fireworks. No political games. Just proof that even when Ferrari won't stand behind him, he still delivers. Now, Ferrari's silence is no longer a strategy. It's a spotlight. And the longer they avoid saying Hamilton's name, the louder the world hears it.